The glass slipped from my hand. Not dropped. Not thrown. Just slipped. Gravity doing what gravity does when your fingers go numb from pure, crystallized terror. It shattered against the marble bar top 3 inches from where I'd been polishing, and the sound cut through the low hum of the velvet rose like a gunshot. Every head in the restaurant turned, including his. Dante Caruso didn't look up immediately. He never did. Men like him didn't react to broken glass or sudden noises. They existed in a bubble of absolute control, where chaos only entered when they permitted it. But his second in command, Marco, moved. One hand disappearing beneath his jacket. One step toward me, his face blank, but his eyes calculating how quickly he could cross the 15 feet between us. "I'm sorry." My voice came out steadier than I expected. "I'll clean it up." Dante's hand rose. A small gesture, barely a lift of 2 fingers, but Marco froze mid-step like he'd hit an invisible wall. Then Dante looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time in the 6 months I'd been bartending at the Velvet Rose. His eyes were the color of aged whiskey, dark amber shot through with gold, and they pinned me like a specimen beneath glass. "You're new," he said. Not a question. "6 months, sir." "And in 6 months you've never broken a glass." How did he know that? How could he possibly know that? "No, sir." His eyes held mine for 3 more seconds. Then he returned to his conversation with the man sitting across from him, a politician whose face I recognized from campaign billboards, though I knew better than to acknowledge that recognition. I cleaned up the glass with hands that only trembled slightly, hyper-aware of the woman sitting alone at table 7. The one who'd walked in 20 minutes ago wearing a wire so obvious it might as well have been blinking neon. The napkin was already in my apron pocket. I'd scribbled the message 5 minutes ago, my handwriting barely legible from the adrenaline making my fingers shake. She's wearing a wire. Now I just had to find a way to give it to him without getting us both killed. 30 minutes earlier, the night had been routine. The Velvet Rose occupied the ground floor of a historic building in Chicago's River North, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place that charged $40 for a cocktail and made you feel like you were getting a bargain. It was beautiful in that calculated way that money could buy, every detail perfect, every surface gleaming, every shadow precisely placed. I'd worked there since March, picked up by the manager after my previous job at a corporate hotel bar had imploded when the hotel was sold. The Velvet Rose paid better. Much better. Enough that I could almost keep up with my younger sister's college tuition and my own student loans simultaneously. I didn't ask questions about why a bartending job paid so well. I'd learned that lesson young. When someone offers you a life raft, you don't interrogate the wood grain. The clientele was exactly what you'd expect. Wealthy, connected, the kind of people who made the city work through invisible strings pulled in rooms like this. I mixed their drinks, remembered their preferences, and practiced the art of selective blindness. Dante Caruso came in every Tuesday and Friday, always at 9, always alone except for Marco, always ordering a Macallan 25, neat, and conducting meetings that lasted exactly 1 hour. I'd served him maybe 20 times. He'd never spoken to me beyond his order. Never looked at me for longer than it took to accept his drink. I was furniture to him. Useful, forgettable furniture. Which was exactly how I wanted it. But tonight, something was different. The woman had arrived at 8:47, 13 minutes before Dante. She'd taken table 7 without waiting to be seated, positioning herself with a clear sightline to Dante's usual table but far enough away to appear coincidental. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing a charcoal suit that was too nice to be a real estate agent but too boring to be anything interesting. She ordered sparkling water with lime. No alcohol. Nobody came to the Velvet Rose to drink sparkling water, and when she'd leaned forward to adjust her napkin, I'd seen it. The small rectangular bulge beneath her blouse, right at the sternum. About the size of a deck of cards. A recording device. I'd frozen mid-pour, bourbon splashing over the rim of the glass I'd been preparing for table 3. My brain had gone into overdrive, running through possibilities. Police? FBI? Some rival organization? A journalist with a death wish? It didn't matter. What mattered was that she was about to get Dante Caruso and everyone in this room arrested, killed, or both. And I would be collateral damage in whatever explosive ending was coming. Self-preservation wasn't pretty, but it was honest. I'd grabbed a napkin from the stack beneath the bar, pulled the pen from my apron, and written 3 words that would either save my life or end it. She's wearing a wire. The politician left at 9:23. Dante remained at his table, Marco standing 3 feet behind his right shoulder like a well-dressed shadow. They were waiting for someone. The next appointment in whatever dark business Dante conducted on Tuesday nights. The woman at table 7 ordered another sparkling water. Her third. She was buying time, waiting for something worth recording. I had maybe 5 minutes before Dante's next meeting started. 5 minutes to deliver the napkin or watch whatever federal operation this was unfold in real time. My hands moved on autopilot, mixing drinks, wiping down surfaces, my brain sprinting through scenarios. Walk over with his next drink, slide the napkin under the glass. Too obvious. Marco would see. Drop it on the floor near his table, hope he noticed. Too uncertain. Wait until he went to the restroom. Except men like Dante Caruso didn't use public restrooms. They had people who secured locations ahead of time. The front door opened. A man entered. Late 50s, silver hair, expensive overcoat. He moved like someone accustomed to being important. Another politician, maybe, or a judge. Someone with power that needed laundering. He headed straight for Dante's table. 30 seconds until the meeting started. 30 seconds until whatever the woman at table 7 was recording became evidence. I grabbed the bottle of Macallan, poured 2 fingers into a fresh glass, and walked toward Dante's table before I could think better of it. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. Each step across the floor felt like walking through water. Marco's eyes tracked me the entire way. His hand was inside his jacket now, resting on whatever weapon he kept there. I reached the table just as the silver-haired man sat down. "Your usual, Mr. Caruso." My voice didn't shake. A small miracle. I set the glass down on the white tablecloth. The napkin was folded in my left palm, hidden against the base of the glass. Dante's eyes flicked to mine. For half a second I saw calculation there. Why was I serving him personally when I usually had the cocktail waitress deliver table drinks? Then his gaze dropped to the glass. To the napkin I'd positioned beneath it, folded so the message faced up. His expression didn't change. Not a flicker of surprise or concern. He simply picked up the glass, allowing the napkin to remain on the table, and took a slow sip. "Thank you," he said. I walked back to the bar on legs that felt made of glass. Behind me, I heard Dante speak to the silver-haired man. "My apologies. I need to make a phone call before we begin. Marco will get you a drink." Chair legs scraped against hardwood. I didn't turn around. Didn't watch. Just focused on the bottles in front of me, counting labels. Anything to keep my hands busy. Footsteps approached the bar. Bourbon. Neat. Marco's voice was flat, giving nothing away. I poured with steady hands, set the glass on the bar top. Marco leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Boss wants to see you. Office. 5 minutes." Then he took the bourbon and returned to the table where the silver-haired man waited, looking mildly annoyed at the delay. "The office?" I'd never been to the office, didn't know where it was, had never seen anyone except management disappear through the door marked private at the back of the restaurant. 5 minutes felt like 5 seconds and 5 years simultaneously. I served drinks, wiped down the bar, smiled at customers, all while my brain screamed that I'd just signed my own death warrant. Maybe the wire was police. Maybe I'd just helped a mob boss evade federal surveillance. Maybe I was about to be disappeared into whatever hole Chicago kept for people who knew too much. Or maybe, the thought crept in slowly, maybe I'd just saved a room full of people from a bloodbath when Marco and his colleagues discovered the wire and handled it the way men like them handled threats. When the 5 minutes were up, I told Jamie, the other bartender on shift, that I needed to check inventory in the back. The door marked private wasn't locked. Beyond it was a narrow hallway, dimly lit, with framed photographs of old Chicago lining the walls. At the end of the hallway was another door. I knocked twice. Enter. Dante sat behind a mahogany desk that looked like it had been transplanted from a different century. The office was all dark wood and leather, a single lamp casting warm light across papers I absolutely should not look at. Marco stood in the corner. A third man I didn't recognize was positioned by the window. The door closed behind me with a soft click that sounded unnervingly final. Sit. Dante gestured to the chair across from his desk. I sat. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. The napkin lay on his desk between us, my handwriting stark against the white paper. What's your name? Mia. Mia Castillo. How long have you worked here, Mia? 6 months. And in those 6 months, have you ever noticed anything unusual about our Tuesday and Friday night clientele? It was a trap. Every possible answer was a trap. I don't really notice much beyond drink orders, sir. I'm focused on my work. The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, more like acknowledgement of a well-played deflection. But you noticed her. He tapped the napkin. Table 7. Yes, sir. Why? She ordered sparkling water. 3 of them. Nobody comes here for sparkling water. And? My throat was dry. And when she leaned forward, her jacket pulled tight across her chest. There was something beneath her blouse. Square-shaped. About here. I pressed my hand to my sternum. Recording devices are usually worn there. Dante's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the room. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. You know what recording devices look like. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. My ex-boyfriend was a private investigator. He used to practice surveillance techniques at home. I saw the equipment enough times to recognize it. True, actually, though Derek had been a shitty PI and an even worse boyfriend. And when you saw this woman, wearing what you suspected was a wire, your first instinct was to warn me. My first instinct was to not be here when whatever was about to happen happened, sir. But I can't afford to lose this job. That earned an actual smile. Small, brief, but genuine. Smart girl. He leaned back in his chair. Marco, bring her in. Marco left through a side door I hadn't noticed. When he returned 30 seconds later, he was gripping the woman from table 7 by her upper arm. She wasn't struggling. Her face was blank, professional. But her eyes were calculating, assessing. Marco pushed her into the chair beside mine. Agent Sarah Walsh, Dante said, looking at her with the same clinical interest one might give an interesting insect. FBI, you've been investigating me for 8 months. Agent Walsh said nothing. You requested reassignment to Chicago specifically to build a case against me. You've placed 3 different informants in my organization, all of whom fed you useless information because I was aware of them from day 1. Dante pulled a file from his desk drawer, opened it to reveal photographs. Walsh entering the FBI field office. Walsh meeting with her supervisor. Walsh at her apartment. You thought tonight would be different. You thought if you could record a meeting between me and Alderman Morrison, you'd finally have enough to secure a warrant. But here's what you didn't account for. He gestured to me. Her. Walsh's eyes cut to me, cold and evaluating. I shrank back in my seat. Mia Castillo, Dante continued. No criminal record, no connection to my organization beyond serving drinks, no reason to warn me, except self-preservation, which is the most honest motivation there is. He stood, circling around the desk to lean against the front edge, his eyes on Walsh. So now you have a choice, Agent Walsh. You can leave here tonight. Your investigation ends. You request transfer back to wherever you came from, and we never see each other again. And if I don't? Then you're arrested for trespassing on private property. Your recording is confiscated and destroyed. And your superiors learn that you've been conducting unauthorized surveillance. Your career ends either way, but one option lets you walk out on your own feet. Walsh was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached beneath her blouse, removed the small recording device, and placed it on Dante's desk. I need my belongings from table 7. Marco will escort you. They left. The room felt suddenly enormous with just me and Dante and the man by the window who hadn't moved or spoken. You're wondering if you made a mistake, Dante said, reading my expression. If you should have let her record the meeting. Trusted the law to handle things properly. I'm wondering if I'm about to end up in the Chicago River, I said before I could stop myself. He laughed. Actually laughed, the sound warm and genuine, and completely at odds with everything I knew about him. No, you're not. He returned to his chair. You did me a significant favor tonight, Mia. That kind of loyalty should be rewarded. I wasn't being loyal, I was being scared. Fear is just intelligence recognizing danger. You saw a threat. You neutralized it. That's valuable. He pulled out a checkbook, wrote something. Tore off the check and slid it across the desk. I looked down. $50,000. The number didn't make sense. I read it 3 times. That's too much, I whispered. That's insulting, actually. But it's a start. He leaned forward. How would you like a better job? I like bartending. You'll still bartend. But you'll also pay attention. Notice things. And when you notice something that might be a problem, you'll tell me. My stomach went cold. You want me to spy for you? I want you to do what you did tonight. Use your eyes. Trust your instincts. Keep me informed. He gestured to the check. That's your signing bonus. Your salary triples starting next week. And your sister's tuition? Consider it handled. I stared at him. How do you know about my sister? I know everything about the people who work for me. Sophia, age 19, sophomore at Northwestern studying pre-med. Smart girl. She deserves to finish her degree without drowning in debt. The words should have felt like a threat, like leverage being established, chains being forged. Instead, they felt like relief. Because he was right. Sophia did deserve to finish a school. And I'd been killing myself working 2 jobs to make that happen, watching her stress about loans, knowing she might have to drop out. What if I say no? Dante shrugged. Then you finish your shift tonight, collect your regular paycheck, and tomorrow you find a new job. Because I can't have someone who knows what you know continuing to work here unless they're committed to my interests. He was giving me a choice, a real one, even if both options were terrible. I looked down at the check again. $50,000. Sophia's next 2 years of tuition paid in full. I need to think about it, I said. You have until your shift ends. 4 hours. He stood. Marco will see you back to the bar. I walked back through that dim hallway on numb legs, the check folded in my pocket, heavy as a stone. Jamie gave me a strange look when I returned. Inventory take that long? Big mess in the back. Had to reorganize everything. The lie came easily. Too easily. The rest of my shift passed in a blur. I mixed drinks, made small talk, smiled at customers, and thought about Dante's offer. It wasn't really an offer. It was a golden cage wrapped in a bow. But Sophia needed that cage, needed the security it represented. And maybe I did too. When my shift ended at 1 a.m., I found Marco waiting by the front door. Boss wants your answer. I didn't go back to the office. Just stood there in the empty restaurant, the chairs already upturned on tables, the floors mopped and gleaming. Tell him yes, I said. But I have conditions. Marco's eyebrows rose slightly. You're making conditions. My sister stays out of this. Completely. She never knows where her tuition money comes from. She never meets him. She stays clean. Anything else? I don't hurt people. I don't carry anything illegal. I don't lie to police if they question me directly. I'll notice things. I'll tell him things. But I'm not becoming a criminal. Marco studied me for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, spoke in low Italian. A pause. Then he handed me the phone. He wants to talk to you. I pressed it to my ear. Hello? Your conditions are acceptable, Dante's voice said. With one clarification. If police question you, you tell them exactly what you saw and heard. But you call me first. Understood? Understood. Welcome to the family, Mia. The line went dead. I handed the phone back to Marco, my hands shaking slightly. What did I just do? I whispered. Marco's expression softened just slightly. You survived. That's more than most people manage. The first 3 weeks were uneventful. I tended bar, noticed things, made mental notes about which customers seemed nervous, which conversations stopped when I approached, which faces appeared more than once but never ordered the same drink. Once a week, Marco would appear at the end of my shift and ask casually about anything unusual. I'd tell him what I'd observed. He'd nod and leave. The money appeared in my bank account exactly when Dante said it would, triple my previous salary. And Sophia called, crying with relief, to say her tuition payment had gone through. I told her I'd gotten a promotion and a huge raise. She believed me because she wanted to, because the alternative was too complicated. Life continued. I paid my rent on time for the first time in years, bought groceries without checking my bank balance first, started sleeping more than 5 hours a night, and I tried not to think too hard about what I'd become. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday. Dante's usual night. He arrived at 9 with Marco, took his regular table, ordered his usual drink. But tonight, someone else was with them. A woman, late 20s, with dark hair and sharp green eyes and a way of moving that suggested she knew exactly how dangerous she was. She sat across from Dante, her posture relaxed, but her gaze predatory. They spoke in low voices, too quiet for me to hear from the bar. 20 minutes into their conversation, Marco approached the bar. Bourbon, neat, and a glass of Pinot Noir. I poured both drinks, my eyes tracking back to the woman. There was something familiar about her profile, something I couldn't place. Who is she? I asked before I could stop myself. Marco's expression hardened. Not your concern. Everything in this restaurant is my concern now. You said so yourself. He studied me for a moment. Then, Lucia Ferrante, Chicago family. Dante's negotiating a territory arrangement with her father. Ferrante. The name triggered a memory. A news story from 6 months ago. A federal raid on a shipping company, multiple arrests, charges of trafficking. The case had fallen apart when the key witness disappeared. She's the one who made the witness disappear, I said quietly. Marco went very still. How do you know that? I read the news. I remember faces. I set the drinks on his tray. And I remember thinking whoever orchestrated that disappearance was smart enough to run things themselves. She does. In everything but name. Marco took the tray. Stay away from her, Mia. She's not like the others. He returned to the table. I watched him deliver the drinks, watched Lucia accept hers with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She said something to Dante. His expression didn't change, but Marco tensed. Then Lucia stood and walked toward the bar, directly toward me. My heart kicked against my ribs. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to be anywhere but here. She slid onto a bar stool with fluid grace, set her wine glass down, and studied me with the focus of a jeweler examining a diamond. "You're new," she said. Her voice was smoke and honey. 6 months, I managed, and Dante trusts you. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. That's interesting. He doesn't trust easily. She tilted her head slightly. What makes you special? I make good drinks. Her laugh was sharp. Liar, but a brave liar. She pushed her wine glass forward. This is too sweet. I prefer something drier. I took the glass, dumped the contents, and poured a different Pinot. Passed it back. Lucia sipped, her eyes never leaving mine. Better. You pay attention to preferences. That's rare. It's my job. No. Your job is to serve drinks. Paying attention to what people actually want beneath what they say they want? That's a talent. She stood, took the wine glass, and leaned across the bar until her face was inches from mine. Dante keeps you close because you see things. I keep people close for the same reason. Her smile was a knife. So here's my question. Mia Castillo. Whose side are you on? My mouth went dry. I don't take sides. I just work here. Everyone takes sides eventually. She straightened. The question is whether you choose wisely. Then she returned to Dante's table, leaving me shaking behind the bar. The meeting ended 30 minutes later. Lucia left first, her exit as commanding as her entrance. Dante and Marco remained, talking in low voices. At closing, Marco appeared at the bar again. Boss wants to see you. The office felt smaller tonight, more suffocating. Dante sat behind his desk, his expression unreadable. What did Lucia say to you? I repeated the conversation verbatim, leaving nothing out. When I finished, Dante was quiet for a long moment. She's testing you, seeing if you'll report back to me or keep secrets. He leaned forward. You made the right choice. What happens now? Now? His smile was cold. Now things get complicated. He pulled out a file, slid it across the desk. I opened it. Photographs. Surveillance images of Lucia meeting with men I didn't recognize. Documents in Italian I couldn't read. Financial records with numbers that made my eyes water. Lucia's father wants to merge territories, Dante said. Combine operations. On paper, it looks like a partnership. In reality, it's a hostile takeover. They'll absorb my operation, eliminate my key people, and take everything I've built. Can you prove that? Not yet. But I will. His eyes met mine. And you're going to help me. My stomach dropped. How? Lucia will be back. She's interested in you. Sees you as a potential asset. Someone she can turn against me. He paused. I want you to let her think she's succeeding. You want me to be a double agent. I want you to be exactly what you've always been. Someone who pays attention. Who notices things. He closed the file. Lucia will try to recruit you. She'll offer money, protection, freedom from me, and you're going to accept. Then what? Then you tell me everything she says. Every plan, every weakness, every detail. His expression hardened. And when the time is right, we destroy her. I should have said no. Should have walked away from this office and this job and this entire world. But Sophia's tuition was paid. My rent was current. And somewhere along the way, I'd started to care whether Dante Caruso survived the wolves circling his empire. What if she realizes I'm lying? Then you'll die badly. He said it without inflection. Simple fact. But you won't. Because you're smarter than she thinks you are. I stood there, decision balanced on a knife's edge. Then I thought about the FBI agent. About how I'd chosen survival over law. How I'd already crossed this line weeks ago. Okay, I said. I'll do it. Dante stood, circled the desk, and offered his hand. I took it. His grip was warm, firm, final. One more thing, he said softly. If you betray me, I'll kill your sister first. So you can watch. The words landed like a punch. I yanked my hand back, fury burning through shock. You said she'd stay out of this. She will. As long as you keep your word. His expression didn't change. I needed you to understand the stakes. I understand. Good. I turned to leave, my vision blurred with rage and fear. Mia. I stopped but didn't turn around. I don't want to hurt her. Or you. But I will if I have to. A pause. Don't make me have to. I walked out without responding. That night, I lay awake in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, understanding fully what I'd become. Not just an informant. Not just a bartender in a mob-controlled restaurant. A weapon. Pointed at targets I'd never chosen. Fired by a man who held my sister's life as collateral. And the worst part, the part that made my stomach turn, was that I understood his logic. Believed he'd do exactly what he threatened, and respected him slightly for the honesty of it. I'd sold my soul for tuition money. Now I just had to survive long enough to make sure Sophia never knew the price.